We are back. Welcome to the Basics Equipment Financing. Will Murphy. I'm going to go over the ins and outs of the basics of equipment financing to help you better your knowledge, to help you serve the customer the best way, to help you get deals on the board. Let's get right into it. So we're going to keep it simple. Right? Equipment financing, I'm going to read this verbatim. It's obtaining the use of machinery, vehicles, or other equipment on a rental basis. This avoids the need to invest capital in equipment. Ownership rests in the hands of the financial institution or leasing company while the business has actual use of it. So financing companies give the customer the platform to actually lease or finance equipment over a specific amount of time so they don't have to outlay the cash right up front. And it's a huge market. How big is this market? It's $1 trillion, right? Think about that. A $1 trillion market. That's huge, and it's growing every single year. What we're in the small ticket market. So this market is a $300 billion opportunity. So just imagine capturing 1% of that $300 billion opportunity. That's a $300 billion a year business if you can capture 1% of that. And there's a lot of companies out there today in the United States that are trying to get a piece of that pie. And you are here listening to this because you want a piece of that pie. And it's very, very easy to be able to get a piece of that pie if you know what you're doing. It's not easy if you don't know what you're doing, but if you do know what you're doing, and this training is going to help you, give you an overview on equipment financing to get you to know the ins and outs, to get you on the right path to get a piece of that $300 billion opportunity that the equipment small ticket market has to offer. Why do customers finance equipment? Right? They may ask you that. Why should I finance this equipment? 100% financing with no down payment. In some cases, we can get the customer full financing, so 100% with no money out of pocket. That's the ideal situation for everyone. No one has, well, I shouldn't say no one. A lot of businesses don't have cash laying around that they want to put down on this equipment. That's why they're coming to us to financing. So a lot of them want 100% financing with no down payment. We can get it done. They can maintain their cash in their business, right? I spoke about that right a little while ago, but they can maintain the cash. They can finance equipment, bring it out 24, 36, 48, 60 months, sometimes even 72 months, and they're paying a monthly payment, and they can keep that cash flow into their business. They can manage risk. What if someone went out, they bought a piece of equipment, cash, on the spot, the truck breaks down the next day? They're in trouble. Yes, they're on the hook for the whole 60 months, but they're only out per month. They're not out the $60,000 they may have paid for that piece of equipment on the spot that day. They can still try to get it fixed, and they still can maintain that monthly payment while they get it fixed. They can plan expenses for cash flow and business cycle fluctuations. Some businesses are up and down. Seasonal businesses are up and down. We deal with a lot of seasonal businesses that they want to get equipment for the busy season, like snow plowers, right? They can get equipment for the busy season, and they can still pay for it during the low season, but it's a manageable payment that maybe, so a landscape company, maybe they really into the plowing in the winter up here in the Northeast. And then in the summer, the revenue goes down a bit, but they can use the revenue in the summer to keep paying for this equipment. So you can plan for expenses and cash flow with equipment financing. Keep up to date with new technology. So new technology is coming out, every single day. And if you want to be ahead of the game, keep up with the Joneses, whatever you want to say, your customer needs to lease equipment. Because with a lease, you can actually get new technology. You can hand the old technology back in when the lease is up, and you can get new technology again. And if you want to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with technology, you need to lease. Address tax considerations, right? Section 179. With an equipment finance agreement, you can speed up that depreciation on that asset. With Section 179, you can write up to $1 million in 2018 off. And with a lease, you can write off those lease payments every single month. Obviously, have them talk to their accountant for that, but you can let them know there's a lot of tax breaks by leasing or financing equipment. You can leverage equipment expertise. We're consultants, right? We want to be consultants. They can leverage our expertise. We're experts in our field. We're consultants. We want to get them in the right piece of equipment. We want to know what they do. We want to know the ins and outs of their company. We want to know everything about how they work, so we can put them in a situation where they lease a piece of equipment and the ROI on that equipment totally blows the monthly payment out of the water, right? This needs to make sense for our borrowers. If it doesn't make sense, they shouldn't be leasing a piece of equipment, right? This piece of equipment needs to make money day one in the business. So you need to consult them. You need to figure out their ROI. You need to go over, that with them to figure out if this is the right piece of equipment to either lease or finance. Again, you can avoid getting stuck with out-of-date equipment. It goes back to keeping up with new technology. Out-of-date equipment, it could happen tomorrow, right? New phones come out every single day. New iPads come out every single day. New software technology comes out every single day. By financing equipment, you can avoid out-of-date equipment. So what's the competition, right? What's the competition in this industry? There is tons of businesses like ours, like yours, that are fighting for a piece of that pie, right? We're dealing with going up against banks, and banks have really good rates, right? They'll finance equipment. It may be a little bit difficult to go through banks. There's a lot of red tape that you got to jump through. And a large bank may not have good customer service, right? So we, as a smaller company, we don't have as many at-bats. So we treat every customer, with like royalty, right? We need to treat every customer and make them our friend, right? So if we can make them our friend, we're going to be leasing and financing their equipment for forever. We have customers that come back to us. We financed a trucking company, I think 16 schedules this year. So if you can keep the customer service in-house with a smaller firm, and banks are huge. They don't have that customer service, but we're up against banks, great rates. Equipment dealers and distributors, they can help you arrange financing using an independent leasing company like ours, but equipment dealers also have their own financing companies that they go through, so that's a competition. We're up against these equipment dealers. Independent leasing companies that have a direct side, obviously they can vary in size and scope, but they also offer many financing options. But if you're dealing with one leasing company, you're right, they have a box. So us as a Everlasting Capital, we have a ton of options. We have over 40 sources that we work with that can fit every single box that the customer has, from bad credit to A-paper credit. We have a product for every type of scenario. Captive leasing companies like John Deere, they offer 0% down. Those are really tough to beat. Let's face it, we can't beat those type of companies that have a captive lease arrangement in place. And brokers and packagers, there's tons of us out there, right? We are brokers. We package up deals. We send them to sources. There's tons of us out here. Back in 2012 when we started this, I think there was 1,000 brokers in the MCA space. Equipment, there's a lot of equipment brokers also, but as far as right now, the industry is going crazy and everyone wants a piece of this industry. And if you go back to the screen before, a $300 billion industry, there's enough for everyone to go around. So you need to get a piece of that and get the knowledge. So this is what we're going to go over in this training. Where can I source deals? It's very important. How do you get deals? Types of equipment to finance, the industries we finance, the application process, the underwriting process, equipment financing pricing, types of equipment financing structures, a term sheet. We're going to go over titling, go over power of attorneys, overnight labels. We're going to go over insurance, and we're going to go over vendor versus private party. I need deals. Everybody needs deals, right? We don't have a business if we don't have customers, if we don't have leads, if we don't have people that have a problem that we have the solution for, but we don't know if they have a problem if we can't talk to them, right? So number one, things that we do on a daily basis, we cold call. We smile and dial. We're calling UCCs. We're calling out of the yellow book. We're searching the internet up and down for certain sites, and we're picking up the phone, making dials every single day, 50, 100 calls a day. You want them to be quality calls though. You want to talk to people about an opportunity, right? You want to find that opportunity, find that pain point, find that problem, and come up with a solution. Number 2, email marketing. Build a list. Build a list and get your content out to people. However you need to package that content up and send it out to people to get it in front of the right buyers is what you need to do. So start making a list today, get some opt-in pages, whatever you need to do to make a list. You want to remarket your current customers, remarket your declines. You want to remarket every single piece of data that you have to get leads coming back in. Text campaign. This is a new thing that's kind of hit this year, really, that you can again get people to opt in on a text campaign. You can send them SMS messages through your portals, through your CRMs, however you may do it. There's a lot of companies out there that offer a service that can blast a text campaign out there. The ROI on a text campaign is pretty great. So if you can get involved in that, do so. Vendors. Vendors should be at the top of your list if you're in the equipment game. Vendors are those as such as John Deere, Kubota, Webstaurant. So they're companies that actually sell equipment to the end user, right? And if you can get a vendor to work with you, however you need to do it, in our case, we have the EverHub portal that is a portal that the vendor can actually log into and see their transactions from A to Z. Vendor's job is to sell the piece of equipment. Our job is to find financing for the piece of equipment. So we need to get vendors comfortable with our process, comfortable with our professionalism, comfortable with us talking to their customer, because at the end of the day, the customer is really the vendor's customer, and we're just finding the financing. So you got to be very professional, get the vendor on board, show them what we can do, get their ROI off the charts, and if we can start financing, and if you can start financing for vendors, they're going to start sending you deals, more and more and more deals. Imagine getting 10, 15, 20 vendors in your corner that are sending you even 5 deals, 5 applications a month. 20 vendors, that's 100 applications a month. That is huge. Your ROI will be great. You'll be able to get things approved and funded faster, because once you start working with vendors back and forth, you know how each other work, and you can start to fund a lot of deals. Number 5, Facebook groups and social media. So LinkedIn, Insta, Twitter, whatever it may be. Infiltrate these groups. Put your content out there. Don't spam though. Do not spam. Spammy people don't like spam. You want to ask questions. You want to provide knowledge. You want to provide content. Maybe provide a deal that you've recently funded. Maybe provide video content. Maybe provide, a service, a mentorship. Maybe provide a training. Whatever you need to do in Facebook, in social, anything on social, you want to put your name out there. This is where you're branding yourself. You want to be able to help people in the groups get to the next level. This is where you can find referral partner reps that can send stuff to you. This is where you can go into admins of groups and figure out something with an admin of group so they can capture their whole group and funnel things to you. So whatever you can do on social media to get things coming to you, do so immediately and start it. Break this stuff down, these 5 things every single day. Break them down and start doing them. Because if you do each of these 5 things on a daily basis and then keep doing it, you'll have stuff start coming to you. Types of equipment that we finance. We finance anything that doesn't shoot, fly, or float. Right? Construction, a big industry, yellow iron, tools, trucks, rock crushers, landscaping companies, plumbing companies, cement companies, electrical companies. Anything yellow iron, sources eat up because it holds value. It holds the value, and if you're financing a piece of yellow iron for 6 years or 5 years, sorry, at the end of that 5 years, it's still going to hold that value. So that collateral is very, very, it's a great collateral to have because it's going to hold its value. Manufacturing companies. We just funded a CNC machine yesterday. Conveyors, restaurants are huge. Over-the-road trucking, long haul, short haul, sleeper cabs, day cabs. When I say by sleeper cabs, they're going over state lines. They're sleeping in their cab. They're not coming home at night. Day cabs, they're leaving their location and then they're coming back to that location same day. There's some restrictions and over the road with fleet requirement, etc. But over the road trucking, we've done millions and millions and millions of dollars in over the road trucking throughout our 6 years at Everlasting Capital. Towing, hauling is huge. Tow trucks, dump trucks, moving trucks, box trucks. We do a lot of box trucks. Retail, fixtures, alarms, signage. We do a lot of signage. POS systems, that's point of sale systems. Healthcare, we do laser equipment, medical diagnostics equipment, emergency vehicles. We've had one guy where we probably funded 10 or 11 privately owned ambulance company that we funded, dental equipment, x-ray machines, software. So anything that doesn't shoot, fly, or float, we can finance. We can find a program that fits that solution, right? We have tons of programs, whether it be A credit down to DF credit, where you've got to come out of pocket. You might not have the best credit score, but your business bank statements show cash flow. So you might have to come out of pocket 10, 25% for a startup or a bad credit deal. Whereas A paper, we funded 6.99% last month on a box truck. So that was a cream deal. The owner had great credit. We got it done at 6.9%. We actually beat out a bank. So we can beat bank rates. So that's the types of equipment we finance. Screenshot this, take a look at this, but anything that doesn't, again, shoot, fly, or float, we can finance. Application process. So application process, we do application only up to $150,000. And what I mean by application only is an application, an invoice, and 3 months bank statement. So you always want to request the invoice with the package and then 3 months bank statements with the package. Now, the application needs to be complete. We have a generic application that we send out. We're doing DocuSign now. The application needs to be fully completed. It needs the EIN number, the business name, the social, the address, the email. All of that data is inputted into our Salesforce system. If you do not have all that data, it's not even worth submitting the application. We need all of that data. The invoice is very, very important. It helps us get the vendor approved. It helps us get the equipment approved. We know what the price is. So we're not shooting in the dark trying to get a number that might not be on the invoice. Say we get a thing approved for $50,000, but the invoice comes back at $75,000. We don't have a deal. We need an invoice. And 3 months bank statements sweeten the deal. We do not need them to submit, but we'd like to see them all the time. Just in case we want to cross-sell them capital in the future, we'll see what their banks look like, but the banks may help the equipment financing transaction. Applications above $150,000. We need an application. Again, we need the invoice again when we need a full financial package. So what I mean by a full financial package is we need last 2 years tax returns, prior year financials, P&L and balance sheet, which is profit and loss and balance sheet. We need an up-to-date P&L and an up-to-date balance sheet. And we also want 3 months bank statements on every single submission over $150,000. So it's simple. If you stick to this application process and if you get full packages and you submit them correctly, we're submitting our application. How we submit them in-house is the full deal name. We submit it with who is the owner of the file and where the deal came from. What was the lead source? So make sure you put that in every single subject line. Full deal name, application owner, where the deal came from, and you'll get faster processing on all of your transactions. Underwriting process. So you get an application, you're all excited. Let's go. We need to underwrite this file. The application submitted, it goes into pre-scrub. So we're looking at bank statements. I should say 3 months if applicable, but we're looking at bank statements, we're looking at credit, we're looking at personal credit and business credit. But what are we looking for in the bank statements? We are looking for cash flow. We're looking for daily ledger balances. Are they cash flow positive? Can they afford to pay this? Are they bankable, right? Can they afford to pay us back? Are we going to lend $60,000 or finance $60,000 for someone that has a $100 daily balance, right? They might have great credit. Actually, I should take that back, because if we're not looking at the bank statements, they have real great credit and they can show that they can afford this and they show comparable credit. Yes, we can finance them. But if we're looking at the bank statements also on a credit deal that isn't up to par, right? Are we going to finance someone that has a $100 daily balance, $60,000, and the payment's going to be $2,200 a month? No, we can't do it. We're not going to do it. They cannot afford it. So lower credit stuff, we're really looking at the bank statements. Higher credit stuff above 680, 680-ish, we're going to be able to do without bank statements, as long as they have comparables and they have great personal credit and business credit. So personal credit, we pull Equifax, but there's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion out of 3 bureaus. Business credit, it's DNB, Paydex score of anywhere between 1 and 100. We like to see that around 80, 75, 80 on the Paydex score. We're pulling the Secretary of State, so we want to make sure the business is active. A great site is e-secretaryofstate.com. And we also want to see 3 web hits on the business, so they have a web presence and they're actively scouring, whether they're on Facebook, they're on Manta, Yelp. We want to see that the business has a web presence. Not to say we don't fund businesses that don't have web presences, but it's better to have a web presence. So the pre-scrub, just to go over it again, we're looking at the banks, we're looking at the credit, personal and business. We're looking to make sure they're an active business, and we want to make sure they have a web presence. Scoring model, which is in the next slide, is priced in tiers, so I'm going to go over that in the next slide. Big thing about equipment is the vendor approval, right? So without the vendor being approved, we cannot fund the vendor, right? So say the vendor is a brand new vendor, a startup, they haven't sold this equipment before, we might not get that vendor approved. So you want to have that invoice, right? So we'll be able to get the vendor approved. We need an SOS search on the vendor. We want to make sure that they're an active business. We want 3 web hits on the vendor, and we need to get that vendor approved. It's very important to have that vendor approved, because without the vendor approved, we're not going to be able to fund the deal. So the current Everlasting Capital lease product over here on the screen, this right here, we should get the vendor approved first, because that's the most important thing to do. And once that vendor is approved in our system, it's usually approved going forward. Then it's the customer. We get them pre-qualified. We submit the application. We look at it in-house. We submit it out. We get a decision, and it goes through, right? Docs collected, docs provided, docs approved, terms reviewed. We send docs out, docs audited by underwriting, docs approved, and then we can pre-fund the customer, deliver equipment, funds released, customer service, we get paid. You get it. That's the process. Simplify that. We get an application. We submit it. We get an approval. We sell the customer. We term sheet the customer. We get the term sheet back. We get the docs out. We get the docs back. We audit the docs. We make sure everything is packaged up correctly. We submit the full package to funding. They audit the docs. Then we fund the deal. Seems simple? It is simple if you do it correctly, and if you hit every single target, or every single, what's the word I'm looking for? There's certain things that need to happen in unison to get this deal done. So you got to be very efficient with a doc package for equipment. Equipment financing pricing. So this is sample pricing. This isn't across the board, because there's different pricing on different sources that we use. I mentioned we have over 30-40 sources that we use. We can do anywhere from 24 to 60-month terms. These are yields. These are lease factors that we use to get pricing, right? So A credit, A plus credit, 740 above, that'll fall on the 595, 695 yields. A credit 700, 739, 695, 9% yields. B credit 660, 699, 9% to 20% yields. And C credit 581 to 659, 20 to 30% yields, even 35% yields. Now, some math if you want to take a calculator out right now, I will run you through how to figure out the pricing for this piece of equipment, right? So take out a calculator or write this down or whatever you need to do to gain the knowledge. I'm going to bring you through how to price a deal. I'm going to bring you through how to get APR on a deal, and I'm going to bring you through that right now. So we get a deal approved. $60,000, a 12% yield for 60 months, right? We want to put 10 points in the deal. So we go to 12%, 60 months, 0.02181. We want to put 10 points in the deal. You take 0.02181, if you have your calculator, take 0.02181 on your calculator and multiply that by 1.10, right? You're going to get a number. So you're going to take 0.02181 times 1.10. You're going to get a number that's 0.0239. Right? It's $60,000. You're going to multiply 0.0239, well, it's exactly 0.023991, and you're going to multiply that by $60,000. And at that point, the monthly payment over 60 months for $60,000 at a 12% yield with 10 points in it is $1,439.46. So that's what you're going to pitch your customer at. You're going to term them out at $60,000, 60 months at $1,439.46. You're going to populate a term sheet. We're going to go over term sheets in a little bit. All of this information that's on this screen right here is going to be populated into our data entry system by our data ninjas on this side. So you'll be able to populate a term sheet that spits out these terms that your customer will be able to circle and send back. But to pre-close, you're going to want to go over the phone. Sometimes you're not just shooting on a term sheet. We want to send term sheets out on every single deal. But to pre-close, you're going to want to go into it and kind of feel them out and figure out what they're looking for, what their price point is at, what their ROI is at. Is this price even going to work for them? You need to figure that out and get it done. So that's how you do it. We can go through that one more time. I'm going to go over it really quick right now again. So we had a 60-month approval, $60,000, 12% yield, 0.02181, 0.02181. You want to put 10 points in it times 1.10. You get 0.023991. Multiply that by $60,000. The monthly payment for 60 months on $60,000 is $1,439.46. Now get out there, sell your client, close it. Let's get docs and let's get those in. So this is the pricing. Take a screenshot of that, write these down, practice your formulas, and let's price out some deals. Next, equipment financing structures. There's two main structures that we sell our clients, that I shouldn't even say sell, that we consult our clients to get into, because there's certain things that clients need that we need to offer. So an EFA, or dollar buyout, equipment finance agreement, is a capital lease, right? This is a great option if the customer intends to keep the equipment after the lease is satisfied. This is called on-balance sheet financing, right? The equipment can be recorded as an asset and depreciated, which means the payments are not fully tax deductible. So Section 179 allows, this year you could write off up to $1 million, and you can deduct the full cost of the equipment against your taxes up to that $1 million in 2018. So if you look to the Section 179 calculation here, they can end up saving, if they write off the max amount, realizing the 35% tax rate that they're probably at, if they're writing off this much equipment, they're going to save $402,000, right? So that $1 million worth of equipment is going to cost, after tax, $747,000. Easiest way to explain this in layman's terms is, everyone out there has probably looked for a car or has bought a car or whatever in the past. You can go to the dealership and they are going to ask you, do you want to lease this or do you want to finance this, right? You're going to finance the car and you want to own it at the end, they're going to send you, once you make that 60th payment, the title is going to go into the mail. The title is going to get delivered to your house, and you're going to own that vehicle, right? Same thing with equipment. If they want to keep this Kubota for 60 months, the Kubota is not titled, but same thing. They're going to keep that for 60 months. They're going to own that piece of equipment after 60 months. A titled, box truck, over-the-road truck, they're going to get the title mailed to them, and they're going to own that piece of equipment at the end of the term. It's a capital lease, on balance sheet lease. Fair market value or term residual or a true lease is called an operating lease. You can relate this, again, in layman's terms, to leasing a car. I lease my car personally. So what I do, I go to the dealership, I lease a car for 36 months. After 36 months, I bring it back and I get a new truck, right? It's a great option for me because I always like new cars. So it's a great option for a company that is always in and out of new equipment. It has out-of-date equipment that has, certain things that always are changing in their industry that they need to keep up. So it's a great option if they're always in and out of equipment. So at the end of the term, they have an option to buy the equipment at the fair market value, which is at the end of the term, which is negotiated. They can finance it again, they can return it, or they can trade it in for a newer piece of equipment. Again, this is off balance sheet financing, not included on the balance sheet as a liability. And most of these payments are 100% tax deductible, but of course you want them to consult with an accountant because we are not accountants. We can give the structures, but we can't legally, we don't know if they can write this off. Most of the time, though, 90% of the time, they can. I should say 99% of the time they can. So those are the two structures that we offer. EFA, fair market value, 10% buyout. Term residual is where they pay, so it's a 24-month term, they pay 21 payments. The remaining 3 payments is the buyout. So there's certain structures that we can offer. We do EFAs probably 80% of the time. The other 20% is a operating lease or pretty much a true lease. So those are the type of 2 financing structures that we offer here at Everlasting Capital. Term sheet. We spoke about that term sheet briefly. After you pre-close the client, you sold the client, they want options, right? They don't know if they want a 60-month term, 48, a 24. They just don't know. So they want to see all the options. And we should be term sheeting every single client. Unless it's already a slam dunk, you don't want to go through the extra step. But if they want options, and they want options in front of them, we should be sending a term sheet out. This can be populated in Salesforce once all the numbers are inputted by our Data Ninja team. So you'll be able to populate if you need help with that. Some certain people cannot populate it, but we will populate it for you and send it over. Send it out to the customer, have the customer circle the option and send back with all the requirements listed. So if you look to the term sheet, proposal conditions, we need the prepayment check made out to Everlasting Capital for 2 payments and the documentation fee. So in this case, we got the payment. It was a little over $3,000. We do cash that immediately. Have them send back the ID, voided check, initial payment, and condition report and 6 photos in this case. So everything on the lease requirements they need to send back to have this funded efficiently. Again, this is only a proposal term sheet, and the numbers, they can change, right? They could be cents off, dollars off, hundreds of dollars off. But if you're doing it correctly, these should be pretty accurate, but it is a proposal and it can change. You should be sending out a term sheet on every equipment deal you have, unless, of course, it's a slam dunk and you don't want to go through this step and they're just ready to go. Let's get contracts. Let's get the initial payment. Let's get docs out. Just a disclaimer, initial check will be cashed immediately upon receiving. Once it gets through my inbox, I am cashing that check. So let your customer know that that check will be cashed, and that's non-negotiable. It's a commitment to us, it's a commitment to your time going through this and getting them the financing that they need. So that's a brief overview on the term sheet. Titling. Titled vehicles are a whole different beast, right? There's certain things that need to be correctly inputted on the title, which some of you may not see, but I want you to know what we're doing on the back end. So if you ever had to jump in and get an assignment, a title by the dealer, you know what you're looking at. This is a little snippet of a back of a title, right? So on the back of the title, you can see this: reassignment by vehicle dealer, reassignment by vehicle dealer. So this was reassigned a couple times. Patriot Motors to Bickford Motors. So Bickford bought this from Patriot Motors. Bickford Motors Inc. was the vendor that we were working with. So they own this truck. There's no liens on the truck. So they then assigned it, Bickford Motors assigned it to our customer, Nighthawk Construction LLC. In this case, this is a scan. This is a scanned copy, so they don't have to be worried that they're going to do it on the original title. We're just working with scanned copies on the back end so we can get this title review popping and get the title review stip cleared so we can fund the deal. But the vendor needs to know that once they send us this title and it is audited and it is clear, that the title needs to be exactly the same way that they written on the scans copy that it needs to be when they send it in. So in this case, assignment by the dealer was Bickford Motors. The customer was Nighthawk Construction, so they assigned it. The chain of ownership is going from Bickford to Nighthawk Construction. This was an EFA, so it needs to make sure Nighthawk Construction LLC. It needs to be the full business name, the full address. Again, on the scanned copy, we want to figure out, is the vendor doing the titling or is the funding source doing the titling? That's very, very important. If the vendor is doing the titling, we need to send out a guarantee of title. That guarantee of title guarantees that they're going to do the titling the correct way and send it to the source. If the source is doing the titling, they don't have to send that. They just send the title to the source after they are funded fully, and the source will handle the titling. We need original title in-house before we get paid. So if the vendor's doing the titling, they have to do it on the back end, and then that reassigned title will be sent to the source. If the source is doing the titling, the source does the titling, and once they get the title, we get paid. Lien holder information, very, very important. It can be different on every deal. Certain sources have a different way they want it written out. In this case, it was North Mill Credit Trust. That's how they want it written out. Their full address. So lien holder needs to be on every single title that we do. And that's case by case, so you got to make sure that it's written out correctly. We try to do that the best we can on the back end. But the titling stuff, the assignment of title, is something that can hold up the funding of the deal, and you don't want it to be held up. So there's directions on every single set of contracts that we get that show how the title assignment needs to read and what the lien holder needs to be written as. Titling, there's going to be power of attorneys that need to be notarized for titling deals. We've all dealt with power of attorneys, so you need to make sure the VIN number is correct on the power of attorney. It's in your best interest before you send the docs out. Make sure the VIN's correct. Check the back of the title. The front of the title. Make sure the VIN matches up to the correct VIN that's on the power of attorney. Because once those are notarized and they come back, if anything's wrong on that power of attorney, it needs to be sent back out and notarized again. That's the last thing that we want to do, is have our customer have to notarize a power of attorney again for an error that we made. So double check, triple check everything on a title deal to make sure everything is in cahoots before you send stuff out. That's an overview on titling. Again, a snippet of a back of a title. We want to get the front and back of the title, but this is how we assign a title for our sources. Insurance is another thing. So with equipment, there's so many different hands in the pot, right? We have the source, we have the customer, we have the vendor, we have us, we have the insurance company. So that's 5 hands, right? So everything is on a timeline. Everything needs to happen in fluent, efficient fashion for this to get funded. Liability insurance sometimes holds this up. I had a deal the other day that I've been it took me all week to get the correct cert of liability insurance, and I sent an email with directions verbatim on what they need to do, and it came back twice wrong. So bear with the insurance companies. You know, sometimes it comes back wrong. Sometimes you don't have the correct cert holder information, so you need to make sure, because that's different on every source also. But this is a certificate of liability insurance that we're going to need on every title deal. We need on non-title deals, sometimes we can force place insurance. We don't need insurance at funding because they got 30 days to do it. But on every title deal, we need a certificate of liability insurance. Directions will be provided and are different with every source. Make sure the correct business name, the full business name, needs to be, like in this case, Matlock Transportation Inc. If that Inc.'s not on there, sometimes we'll get kicked back. The cert holder, Financial Pacific Leasing Inc. In this one, its successors are assigns. ISAOA, that's very important for most of the companies that we do business with. They need to have the correct address. So that is on the documents. That is, you can request that, how the cert needs to be written out so you get it right the first time. It needs to have the limits. In this case, you know, $1 million. It's usually $2,500 deductible. Again, that'll say it's case by case. Every lender is different, but most of the time it's $1 million, $2,500 deductible. The value of the piece of equipment that we're financing needs to be listed on this insurance. So you'll see it right here. The VIN number, you'll see it right here. The VIN number, again, with all these VIN vehicles, they need to be correct on the insurance. Lost payee, most all sources, or I should say every source, wants to be listed as the lost payee. And ISAOA is on most of the sources that we work with, its successors or assigns. So you might hear that a lot. But this is a quick overview of the insurance, the certificate of liability insurance that we require on every titled vehicle. So now you see it, now you know it, now you know what you need to do. Now you know what we do on the back end, so you can be, you know, on the up and up with the insurance. If I'm requesting insurance, if you know it's taking a little while to get insurance, this is why. There's a lot of things that need to be right on a cert of liability insurance. Invoice. Invoice is very, very important, right? On a lease, there's two that we do, a lease or an EFA. On a lease, the invoice needs to read sold to the funding source, right? Shipped to the customer. Sold to the funding source, shipped to the customer. It's very important to have that correctly if it's a lease. Now, if it's an EFA, it's a little bit simpler to remember. Sold to the customer, shipped to the customer. We can't mess that up. EFA, Equipment Finance Agreement, sold to the customer, shipped to the customer. So these are the two invoice structures that we need from the vendor if it's a lease or an EFA. So again, a lease, sold to the funding source, shipped to the customer. An EFA, sold to the customer, shipped to the customer. So take a screenshot of this. Make sure you keep this on file. And it's a very, very, very simple thing, but sometimes you can make it complicated. But there's only two ways to do it. It's very, very simple. It needs to list out the full amount. If there's a down payment, it needs to list out the down payment and the subtotal. And we're taking this, so it needs to be very accurate. We're taking the description of the equipment is on the contracts in the equipment addendum page, so that needs to be accurate. If there's a site inspection, this needs to be very accurate because we're going to go looking for this Omniturn GT75. If it's an Omniturn GT78, we're shit out of luck. So everyone needs to be on the same page with the invoices. They need to be accurate. If you need them corrected, you need to send it back to the vendor. If the vendor is good, they should have it back within the hour. But you got to keep on these vendors because, like I said, there's a lot of hands in this pot. Five people in every single equipment financing transaction. So everyone needs to be on the same page. Remember this: lease versus EFA. Lease, sold to funding source, shipped to customer. EFA, sold to customer, shipped to customer. Vendor versus a private party. We hear this a lot. You probably hear the word vendor. You probably hear the word private party. You probably hear private party. Oh shit, it's a private party. A vendor is an actual physical company that owns the equipment. They run their business as an equipment dealer. They're selling equipment. That's their livelihood. They buy and sell equipment. That's what they do. A vendor has an active SOS. They may have a dealer's license. Not everyone does, but they may have a dealer's license. They have a physical location. They have a web presence. A private party, on the other hand, is just could be some Joe Schmo, just an individual looking to sell a piece of equipment they own privately, right? It could come from Craigslist, Facebook. We've dealt with private parties on both Craigslist and Facebook. It just could be a random guy that sell it in a magazine. So we can get both vendor and private party funded. There are some restrictions for private party. A lot of sources don't do private parties, but there are some that do. But keep in mind, vendor versus private party, you need to know what a vendor is and what a private party is and what is the difference and who can do them and who can't do them. So as you go along, you'll hear vendor, you'll hear private party. We want to be working with a vendor. It is 10 times easier to be working with a vendor than a private party. So I appreciate you guys listening to my equipment overview. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, call me, do whatever you can. This is going to be first of many trainings this year on equipment. I'm going to go into detail on certain areas of equipment in future trainings. But this concludes the training for the equipment financing overview. Appreciate your time.